Welcome to Life Stories, where the loudest truths are often spoken from the quietest corners. She raised him alone. No applause, no help, no spotlight. 18 years of sacrifice built on ramen dinners, missed birthdays, and whispered bedtime promises. And on the day that was supposed to be hers too, they told her to stand in the back. But what if the person you gave everything to stood up when the whole world expected you to stay silent? This isn't just a story about motherhood. It's about being erased and then being seen. About the moment when love doesn't ask for permission, it takes the mic. Stay with us, because what happens on that graduation stage will change more than just one life. Now let me tell you what really happened that day. The smell of freshly cut grass, mixed with the sweetness of graduation balloons, filled the air as Rachel Morgan stood at the edge of the auditorium entrance, one foot still outside, like she hadn't quite decided to go in. Her hands tightened around a small clutch, knuckles white, nails chipped from nervous picking. She'd pressed her dress the night before, a soft blue A-line number she bought on sale 3 months earlier. It wasn't glamorous, but it was honest, just like her. Inside, the crowd moved like a tide, cheering parents, camera flashes, the chaotic elegance of celebration. Somewhere in that sea was her son, Ethan, 18 years old, about to walk across a stage with a diploma he earned inch by inch. The same boy who once cried when he couldn't solve a math problem and fell asleep in her arms during thunderstorms. Rachel took a breath and stepped in. An usher in a black polo shirt and khakis intercepted her near the aisle. Clipboard in hand, practiced smile. "Hi, ma'am. Are you looking for a seat?" "Yes," she replied, trying to sound composed. "My son's Ethan Morgan. He said he reserved seats, left side, near the front." The usher's eyes dropped to the clipboard. A pause. Then a flicker of something, uncertainty, maybe pity. "Those seats were taken, ma'am. By the Carter family. I'm really sorry. We only have standing room now, near the back." Rachel blinked. "I'm his mother." He didn't respond, just looked down, as if the carpet was somehow responsible for the seating chart. Behind him, in the very seats she was promised, she saw them. Aaron, her ex-husband, leaned back comfortably in a navy blue blazer that probably cost more than her monthly rent. Beside him, Tiffany, his younger, impossibly polished new wife, laughed at something his sister whispered. Rachel's stomach turned. Not because she expected kindness, but because she hadn't expected to be erased. Then Tiffany turned. Their eyes met across the auditorium. There was no malice, no smile, just that subtle, surgical precision of someone who knew exactly how to win without saying a word. Tiffany leaned toward Aaron and whispered something. Rachel couldn't hear it, but the usher flinched. "He doesn't want her here. Let her stand in the back." Her body went cold. Not from surprise, but from recognition. "Say that again," came a voice beside her. Lauren, her younger sister, fiery as ever, was already stepping forward. "I dare you to say it louder this time." Rachel touched her arm gently. "Not today." Lauren's jaw tightened. "You're really going to let her get away with that? On Ethan's day?" Rachel nodded once. "It is his day. That's exactly why I won't ruin it." But inside, her chest burned. Every step she took toward the back felt like walking away from everything she had built. Ethan had promised her. "Front row, Mom. Already told them. You'll see your name." She scanned the auditorium. Balloons bobbed at the aisle ends. Rows of proud families clapped as graduates filed into view in flowing navy gowns. She had waited 18 years for this. Through scraped knees and stomach fluss, overdue bills, and minimum wage jobs that turned into double shifts. Through birthdays with hand-wrapped dollar store toys and science fairs built with borrowed glue sticks. She had built this day with her bare hands. And now, here she stood, forgotten. From the back wall, beneath a dim exit sign, she watched the front row like a memory that had been edited without her consent. She couldn't stop wondering. Did Ethan know? Did he let this happen? That question threatened everything. She reached into her bag and brushed her fingers across a worn photograph. Ethan at 10, his cheek pressed against hers, both of them wearing paper crowns from a homemade birthday party. His eyes then had been full of trust. Was that trust still there? The lights dimmed, music swelled. Rachel lifted her chin. She didn't have a seat, but she had a reason to stay. She had a truth no one else in that row could claim. She was his mother. And then, just before the names began, she saw Ethan. He walked in with quiet confidence, eyes scanning the crowd, not for fanfare, not for his father. And when he saw her, standing in the shadows, he didn't smile. He didn't wave. He just looked. And in that look, something broke open. Have you ever been pushed to the back of your own story? What would you do if the one person you loved most might have let you disappear? But what Rachel didn't know, what no one expected, was that Ethan had a microphone waiting, and he wasn't done speaking yet. Continue to part 2. Ethan stood at the edge of the stage, diploma in one hand, the other resting at his side like he was still deciding whether to stay in the moment or run from it. The applause had died down. The principal had already motioned for him to step off, but he didn't move. Instead, he turned slowly, not toward the front row, but toward the audience, the whole of it. His eyes landed near the back wall, where Rachel stood stiff and quiet, her heart thundering in her chest. Her hands, clenched into fists a moment ago, were now trembling. Ethan took a step forward. He cleared his throat, voice low but firm. I know I'm supposed to just walk off the stage now, he began, his voice echoing through the hushed auditorium. But if you'll give me a minute, there's something I need to say. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Rachel could see the confusion spreading, eyebrows lifting, heads tilting. She froze. I've been told a lot over the past 4 years, Ethan continued, about how to carry myself, how to succeed, how to prepare for the future. But everything I needed to know about how to live, I learned from one person. Rachel's breath caught. This diploma isn't just mine, Ethan said, raising the scroll slightly. It belongs to the woman who raised me on her own, who worked nights, weekends, holidays, who skipped meals, skipped sleep, skipped her own dreams so I could chase mine. Now the room was still. A single camera flash went off, but no one moved. She stood in the back today, Ethan's voice softened, because someone decided she didn't belong in the front. But let me be clear, there is no one who belongs there more than my mother, Rachel Morgan. A collective inhale swept through the room. Rachel couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Her legs felt unsteady, and her cheeks were wet, though she didn't remember crying. The room hadn't erupted into applause yet. It was as if everyone was waiting, processing what had just unfolded in front of them. Then it started. First a clap, then another. Then the entire auditorium rose to their feet. Rachel didn't know where to look, so she looked at him, her son, still standing on that stage, not basking in pride, but calm, steady, holding her gaze like he'd never stopped being that 10-year-old who once whispered, "You're the one who shows up." But just as the applause swelled, Rachel felt something else, a shift, not on stage, but near the front row. Aaron, he didn't clap, didn't stand. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, hands folded, his face unreadable. And beside him, Tiffany, still and quiet, but with a different energy, her fingers wrapped around the arm of her seat, nails digging into the plush fabric. She wasn't used to losing the spotlight. Rachel saw it, the cold calculation behind her smile cracking. That's when the memory returned. 4 months ago. The voicemail, a message she'd never told anyone about. She had picked up her phone during a break at work, hands greasy from prepping takeout orders. A number she didn't recognize had left a message. It was short, blunt. Hi, it's Tiffany Carter. Just wanted to clarify something. Aaron's trying to get more custody, again. If you really want Ethan to have peace during senior year, maybe don't show up to everything. It confuses him, makes it messy. He needs stability. Rachel had saved the voicemail but never responded. She had kept it hidden, thought maybe it was just a moment of desperation, that it didn't matter as long as she showed up and stayed quiet. But now she saw what Tiffany had meant. It hadn't been about Ethan's peace. It had been about control, about perception. Ethan walking to the back of the auditorium, toward her, wasn't just a moment of recognition. It was a rejection of that control. The truth wasn't messy. The truth was that a mother stood in the back because someone with power wanted her erased, and her son had refused to let it happen. Ethan reached her. He didn't say anything. He just handed her the diploma. His eyes were misted, but sure. "This is ours," he whispered. Rachel held it like it was made of glass, the weight of it heavier than anything she'd ever carried, and somehow lighter than she'd ever felt. But as they turned to leave, Ethan hesitated. "I need to tell you something," he said quietly, not looking at her but toward the front. "Dad knew you didn't have a seat. He told me they had it all arranged. Said you'd be fine with standing." Rachel didn't speak. Her throat was too tight. "I didn't believe it," Ethan continued. "I thought it was a mistake. I told him, you were supposed to sit front row. But when I saw you standing back there," his voice cracked, "I knew he lied." Rachel's heart broke open again, not from hurt, from clarity. For years, she had carried the weight of being too much and never enough. Now she saw it for what it was, not a reflection of her, but a reflection of people who couldn't handle her truth. Have you ever realized someone tried to rewrite your role in your own story? What would you do if the person who hurt you the most finally showed their hand? Rachel walked out of that auditorium no longer a shadow, but what waited at home would test everything she thought she'd reclaimed. Continue to part 3. The evening air outside the auditorium was warm, touched with the golden hue of a sunset that seemed to stretch time itself. Rachel and Ethan walked in silence across the cracked pavement of the school parking lot, his cap in hand, her heels echoing faintly as if reluctant to let the day end. He had stayed by her side the entire time, through the congratulations and lingering stares, through the shocked faces of parents who had heard every word he said from that stage. Some smiled at her. A few nodded. Most just watched. They didn't matter. What mattered was the boy beside her, now a man, who had turned a moment meant for applause into something sacred. Truth, spoken in front of everyone who once dared to doubt her. Back at the apartment, Rachel placed the diploma on the kitchen table, the same table where she once used grocery store flyers as placemats and taught Ethan how to subtract fractions with jelly beans. It looked out of place, and yet perfect. She turned to find him leaning in the doorway, arms crossed, that soft weariness on his face that only came after big moments, birthday parties, spelling bees, or once, after standing up to a teacher who mispronounced her name during a conference. "What happens now?" he asked. She smiled faintly. "You go live your life." "And you?" he asked. The question settled into the space between them. Rachel had spent so long surviving for someone else that she had never really imagined what came after. Not really. She was always pushing through the next shift, the next bill, the next bruised knee or broken dream. Always behind, always catching up. "I figure it out," she said, and for the first time in a long time, it didn't sound like a burden. It sounded like a beginning. They ate leftover pizza on paper plates, laughed at old stories, and for a moment, everything felt simple again. Easy. Before the world complicated what love should look like. Ethan stayed the night, fell asleep on the couch with his hand draped over his chest, the TV still playing muted reruns of sitcoms they used to watch together when the power stayed on. Rachel stood in the doorway just watching. She didn't wake him. She didn't say goodnight. She just stood there, letting it all sink in. The pride, the peace, the ache of letting go. Morning came quiet and slow. The coffee machine sputtered to life as Rachel leaned against the kitchen counter, watching the light change across the floor tiles. Her phone buzzed on the table. It was Aaron. She stared at the name for a moment before answering. "Rachel." His voice was measured, unreadable. "Can we talk?" "You had 18 years to talk," she replied calmly. "I saw what he did yesterday. So did everyone." There was a pause, a long one. "I didn't think he'd react that way," Aaron admitted. "I thought he'd understand." Rachel laughed softly, not from humor, but from exhaustion. Understand what? That his mother didn't deserve a seat because she couldn't afford a silk dress or a family name that sounded better in a program? "That's not what I meant." "You lied to him, Aaron." Another silence. Then, "I didn't want to share the moment with you." There it was, the truth, laid out with all the elegance of a knife. I wasn't there to share it with you, Rachel said, her voice sharp but steady. I was there for our son. And you made a choice. So did he. He didn't reply. Not for a long while. And when he finally did, his voice was different. Smaller. He won't talk to me. He will, she said. But when he does, you'd better be ready to listen, because that boy sees everything now. Every sacrifice, every absence, every moment you tried to edit me out. Rachel hung up before he could answer. She stared at her phone for a long time, then set it down beside the coffee pot. That afternoon, she took the diploma off the table and hung it on the wall, not in the living room, but in the hallway, just above a row of old photographs. Ethan at 5, Ethan at 9, Ethan in a Halloween costume made from bedsheets and paint. The newest frame didn't match the others. It was shinier, newer, like a visitor in a room of familiar ghosts. But it belonged there. That weekend, Ethan left for a weekend trip with friends before college move-in. As he hugged her goodbye, he whispered, "Don't forget what I said." "I remember." "Then promise me." She smiled and brushed his hair back with the same fingers that once tied his shoes. "I promise." He stepped out the door, the latch clicking behind him, and she didn't cry. Not because it didn't hurt, but because it finally didn't feel like loss. It felt like legacy. Weeks passed. The apartment grew quieter. Her shifts at the diner grew longer again, but not heavier. She'd bought a new notebook and started writing in it late at night, not about bills or schedules, but stories. Her stories. Their stories. Ones she wasn't ashamed of anymore. One morning, a woman came into the diner, middle-aged, tired eyes. A boy about Ethan's age sat beside her, sulking over a menu. "You're Rachel, right?" the woman asked, hesitantly. "The one from the graduation video?" Rachel blinked. "Video? It's all over social media. What your son said. People are calling it the back row speech." She smiled. "Thank you. You gave us something real." Rachel didn't know what to say, so she nodded. That night, she found the video. The view count was in the millions. The comments were endless. And for the first time, she didn't feel invisible. She didn't feel like she had to prove anything. She had stood in the back, and the world had turned to face her. What part of Rachel and Ethan's story resonated with you the most? If this story touched your heart, comment 100 below. Where are you watching from today? Share this video with someone who believes in quiet strength and unconditional love. Thank you for watching Life Stories.